Hello everybody and welcome back to Take Juan and my review of Hayao Miyazaki's newest movie, The Boy and the Heron. I will just start by saying that I was beyond excited for this movie. I absolutely adore Hayao Miyazaki. He has directed masterpieces such as Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, Howl's Moving Castle, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, The Wind Rises, Ponyo, Porco Rosso, and many more. He is an incredible director. And his newest movie, The Boy and the Heron, just came out, or I saw it at the film festival, and I thought this movie was great. There is a lot of this film that I absolutely adored. That said, towards the end, the movie lost me a little bit. There are some bits that confused me a little bit. But okay, I guess I'll start by talking about the good, or I guess I should say the great, the stuff that really worked, the stuff that I loved. And the first thing I have to bring up is the animation. Doi. It's kind of a given at this point. A Studio Ghibli film directed by Hayao Miyazaki. Of course, it's going to have breathtaking animation. And, this film is not the exception. The backgrounds are gorgeous. The characters are incredible. The fluidity of motion is just a wonder to behold. It is so freaking great to see a conventionally animated movie. 2D, hand-drawn animation. There's a certain artistry that comes with every single frame of The Boy and the Heron. And I generally think the animation at display in The Boy and the Heron is some of the best animation I've ever seen. In particular, of course, no spoilers. I understand the movie hasn't come out yet, so I won't talk about spoilers. But there are some scenes, there are some flashback scenes where they keep showing a burning hospital. You'll know it when you see it. But every time that they cut back to this flashback of the burning hospital, it was just some of the most gorgeous animation I've ever seen. Now, something else that I also very much loved, and it is also very much a given, is the music. The music of Studio Ghibli films has always been amazing, and that is, partly thanks, in a big part, thanks to one guy called Joe Hisaishi. I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name, but Joe Hisaishi has worked with Hayao Miyazaki in, a bunch of his previous films. His scores are always incredible. They are filled with this, sense of childlike wonder and whimsy and magic and fantasy, but, they can also be sad and melancholic at certain points, but they can also be subtle and simple and minimalist, and yet they're so incredibly powerful. And his score for The Boy and the Heron is another banger. This is yet another home run from Joe Hisaishi. Now, something else that I very much enjoyed about The Boy and the Heron is that this movie is very much a Hayao Miyazaki film. This is very much a Hayao Miyazaki movie stylistically, and what I mean by that is, this movie features a magical world that is very similar to the other magical worlds that Hayao Miyazaki has created in his previous films. These are worlds that are full of wonder, full of whimsy, full of beautiful colors, beautiful vistas, that they, perfectly represent, the Shintoist lifestyle or the Shintoist philosophy that Hayao Miyazaki, very much believes in. The creatures are also very much Hayao Miyazaki creatures. They are creative, they are weird, they are fun, they are colorful, they are beautiful, and they always walk this fine line in between being grotesque and scary, but then also being beautiful and breathtaking and magical. Now, this is also very much a Hayao Miyazaki movie narratively, when we talk about the narrative of the movie, the story of the film. This is yet another Hayao Miyazaki movie where a young kid who is kind of coming of age, he stumbles upon a magical world, whether it is through a portal, or he finds a tunnel, or he finds a door, or he finds it in the backyard. There are many Hayao Miyazaki movies where young children stumble into magical worlds. Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro, I think, are the first two that come to mind, and this is yet another one of those stories. And, the last thing I have to say when I talk about this being very much a Hayao Miyazaki movie is that The Boy and the Heron is very much a Hayao Miyazaki movie thematically, when it comes to the themes, when it comes to the ideas that this movie tackles. This is yet another movie that focuses on exploring letting go, on exploring the idea that life involves change, that change will happen, it is inevitable, And we have to accept it, and we have to live with that, and we have to grow as people. These are themes that Hayao Miyazaki has tackled in many of his movies, and I think he once again furthers those ideas in The Boy and the Heron. So yeah, that is another reason why I adore this movie, because it is very much a Hayao Miyazaki film. And, if you're a Hayao Miyazaki fan, what else do you want? I already mentioned this already, but I guess the best way I could put it is I absolutely adored the first half of this film. And some of the things that I love the most about the first half is, the build-up. The build-up to the moment where the child finally stumbles into this magical world. The way more magical elements start popping up, more frequently and more frequently and more frequently until they suddenly explode and, the child is thrust into this adventure, into this magical adventure. All of that build-up, 10 out of 10, amazing. Something else that I very much enjoy, and it comes hand in hand with what I already mentioned, is the introduction of the Heron. This movie is called The Boy and the Heron for a reason. The Heron is one of the main characters, and I loved the way they introduced this character because, once again, they very wisely walk the fine line between grotesque and magical, between disgusting and majestic. Something else that I particularly loved about the first half of this movie are the relationships between the child and the Heron, the relationship between the child and the father. That was another one that led to some great jokes and some great moments. Then there's also the relationship between the child and a group of cute old ladies that are working there in the manor, in the house where the child is living. And then once the child enters into this magical world, the first couple of situations that the protagonist stumbles into are absolutely amazing, and I absolutely love them. Particularly, there are some moments with pelicans. No spoilers, but you'll know it when you see it. All those moments with pelicans I thought were really great, really thought-provoking, really powerful. And then particularly, there's a beautiful moment with this very cute, round, white, floating creatures. You'll know. I'm sure you've seen them. They're featured in the trailer, and they're featured in some of the promotional material. They're great. I love them. The main scene with these creatures is so charming, so full of whimsy, so Hayao Miyazaki, and so typically Studio Ghibli that it just gave me shivers. So yeah, this first couple of situations in the magical world, I ate them up. I absolutely love them. That said, in the second half, once again, the movie loses me slightly. It lost me just a bit. When I say that the second half of this movie kind of confused me, I don't mean like the story. I don't mean like, oh my god, I have no idea what's going on. No. The story's pretty understandable, even though it's surrealist and weird. The stuff that I didn't really understand is, towards the end, the movie has these moments that are very clearly trying to be like, oh, this is the message. This is the takeaway. This is what you should be learning from this film. Both for the audience and the main character. There are many moments where the child is being taught a lesson. And for me, I guess it wasn't that clear what the lesson was meant to be. I was like, what are we meant to learn from this interaction? What is the takeaway from this? So once again, it might be my fault. Maybe I just didn't understand it. But I guess the best way I could sum it up is, towards the end of the movie, very late in the film, they introduce properly two characters, just out of nowhere. One of these characters is called the Parakeet King, and he kind of acts as this antagonist, at this, antagonistic force in the last couple of minutes of the movie. And I don't know, I just felt he came into the film kind of out of nowhere, and then he was doing some stuff, and I was like, why are you doing, what is happening here? And then the second character is the older guy. I won't spoil who he is, I won't tell you who he is, but there is this older guy that you've seen in some of the promotional material, you've seen in the trailers, you've seen in some of the pictures. He's a really cool, interesting character, but then there's a moment towards the end where, they're doing something that involves some building blocks, some little building blocks. And when I was watching that scene, I was like, what are you saying here? What's the point? What is the takeaway? I don't know. It just felt a bit confusing, and it didn't really come together as good as I would have liked. It might just be because I didn't understand it. Maybe on a second view, everything will gel and everything will make perfect sense. But yeah, the second half is a bit messy, in my opinion. So yeah, those are my thoughts of The Boy and the Heron. In conclusion, I think this is yet another home run for Studio Ghibli. This is another absolutely beautiful movie that if you're a fan of animation, if you're a fan of Studio Ghibli, if you're a fan of surrealism, and if you're a fan of Hayao Miyazaki, you have to definitely check this one out. It is not a disappointment. Even though the second half lost me a little bit, there is more than enough stuff to make this film worth your time. To sum it all up, what I love the most about this film is just how it tackles this, these big questions, these big philosophical ideas about life, about what it means to be alive, what it means to let go, what it means to accept change, to grow as a person. It tackles all of those ideas in a very whimsical, fantastical, surrealist way. It tackles it in a very Hayao Miyazaki way, and that was absolutely beautiful. To wrap it all up, the last thing I'll say is, in Japan, where this movie was made, in Japan, this film is not actually called The Boy and the Heron. It is called How Do You Live? Sorry. It is inspired on a book by the same title, How Do You Live? And I honestly think that title, How Do You Live, it is a much better title for what this film actually is than The Boy and the Heron. The Boy and the Heron makes it sound like it's like this, buddy comedy of a child and a heron doing wacky, silly stuff. But that is not really what it is. This is a surrealist, visual, creative, beautiful exploration of what it means to live, which in turn means, what it means to accept change and to grow as a person. So in conclusion, I thought The Boy and the Heron was great. I might give it a bigger score after watching it a second time. Maybe I'll understand some of the things that didn't quite work in a first viewing. But right now, I would give The Boy and the Heron a very solid 8 out of 10, which means I thought this movie was great. And that is it for my review of The Boy and the Heron. Stay tuned for more reviews. Goodbye.